She just said there's a snake. Should we do it? Should we not?
We interpret this.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Traveling with the Q's. Today we're gonna go check out Cragfont over at Castalian Springs. Excited?
Yeah, I'm excited. We went there for Halloween time. We heard some really cool historic stories, and I'm really excited to learn more about the place.
And we are going to check out something really special today. So once a month, they've got a special behind the scenes. So we're going to go to places that's normally not open to the general public. So stay tuned for a fun and exciting time as we go back in time to Cragfont.
Let's go!
So we're excited because we just got here to Wynwood. Prior to getting here, we were over at Cragfont, and they told us to come to the 1 o'clock tour. So we figure we'll come do the 1 o'clock tour, and then we'll go do the 2 o'clock at Cragfont.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, let's go. She said this is the largest log structure house that we'll probably ever see in our whole life. So yeah, it does look really large. No.
No, that's kind of my favorite part of this room. And it makes it a really good place to start talking about the building itself. So we said outside on the porch that Elmira Winchester inherited this land from her father in the mid-1820s, right? Early 1825, she also marries her husband, Alfred Wynn, who we see for the first time over here in this portrait. Here's Alfred. Now, at the time that they married in 1825, there's actually a road running through this community, crosses right in front of Cragfont, so some of y'all are going to hear this again, and then it curved and ran almost parallel to the road we see out here today. This road was called the Holston Road, and from the mid-1780s till right at 1830, that road was the main road connecting Knoxville to Nashville. There's a lot of kids growing up in this house. Business-wise though, how is he going to get people here if that road no longer put them right in front of his building, right? That's the big question. The answer to that ends up actually being that sulfur spring we started off talking about. By the 1830s, Tennessee is home to a growing mineral spring resort industry. Sulfur water was thought to cure literally anything. Now, over its history, this building does operate as a resort 2 separate times. So to keep it less confusing, you're going to hear me call it the first era and the second era of the resort. The first era is under Alfred and Elmira, runs from 1830 to 1861, right at the start of the Civil War. And it's the heavy medicinal focus. The do you suffer from this or this era is what I call it. The second era will be a little bit later, 1899 to 1914, under the management of some of Alfred and Elmira's daughters. So we'll see 2 generations, 2 eras of this resort operating. The first era of this resort, 1830 to 61, Alfred has gone a lot. So it really is more Elmira's face in here. Over here on the wall, you're going to see our only known portrait of her. When you go over to Cragfont, you're going to see a photo of her. The portrait is actually done from that photo. So there's the same image, just different formats. We don't have anything when she's younger, unfortunately.
What's the year she lived in between?
1805 to 1883.
Okay.
Yeah, and when most people look at this portrait, immediate response is, she looks kind of sassy. Or like she looks something, right?
She had to be sassy 14 years.
Right? She's the 6th of 12 kids over at Cragfont. So she is right in the middle. And there's some stuff about her background that is super important for us to understand and how she's living her life here as well. First of all, growing up over at Cragfont, she's coming from one of the wealthiest families here in early Middle Tennessee. And I can't emphasize that enough. Because this is not a young woman who grows up doing any kind of physical labor whatsoever. In fact, according to her diary as a 17-year-old, she's usually in bed till 1 o'clock, so just about 20 minutes to go. And then she would get up and get ready for the day and maybe take a walk or read a book. Not a young woman who's doing work here. And that's important. The other thing I want us to think about is she is incredibly well educated. She is well read. She attends school in Nashville, New Orleans. She is phenomenally intelligent. And she loves to read, which is a huge part of who she is. And it's something she passes on to her own 14 kids as well. They're going to kind of follow that same pattern. They're super well educated, super well read. Their letters are full of just random book references. Elmira likes to tease her siblings, but she calls them by literary characters. So her diary is kind of an Easter egg of, what is she reading? What is she calling him? So she's a huge Sir Walter Scott fan. Reading. When I tell you her kids are well read and well educated, is that any kind of shock? Not really, right? William Hall Wynn. Next to him is Winchester Wynn, the youngest of the bunch. He's the 14th kid. He's the baby of the group. This is where it gets really fun, okay? Up here, Lucilius William Wynn. Everyone laughs at the name, right? Lucilius William, what is that?
Love it.
Below him is his brother, Valerius Publicola Winchester Wynn.
Love that.
What is his name, right? Everyone looks at me like,
It's got to be to do with the book.
it has to do with the book.
That's the
Yep.
book, yeah.
So there's a couple things going on here. Earlier this morning I gave this tour and everyone goes, what the heck? And I'm like, I love that moment. So, couple things going on here. First of all, family names. Elmira has brothers Lucilius William and Valerius Publicola, which is no less confusing until we talk about book references. The Winchesters and the Wynns are such readers, right? And they're huge into classical literature, to the point that they are naming their kids after ancient Roman generals. So, this is where we get these names, is actually Roman history. Valerius does go by Val, and Lucilius goes by Billy. So, we do shorten it quite a bit. Next to them, we see 3 of Elmira's 6 daughters. And this is another spot that tends to kind of surprise people, kind of challenge what we think here. Of Elmira's 6 girls, only 2 ever marry or have children. That's it. Kind of unusual again, right? The 2 who marry are not pictured. Their names are Ida and Selima. A third daughter who's not pictured is named Caroline, and she dies at the age of 23. So she's one who does die really, really young. These 3 women are the 3 we're going to spend the most time on today. On the right is Molly, top left is Louisa, and below her is Susan. All 3 of these women incredibly well educated, all trained as teachers. They all moved out of the state, taught in different parts of the country, then came back to this area right after the end of the Civil War. As they came back, they took on a number of different jobs. Louisa, up at the top left, 6th child overall, but by the end of the 1860s, the oldest surviving. So as Alfred and Elmira were getting older, she seems to be the one who takes on the most day-to-day management of this property, right? Susan, below her, opened her own school here on the property, running that from the 1870s into the 1890s. Molly, on the right, is one of the first postmistresses in this part of Middle Tennessee. Collectively, they're the 3 who reopened the resort in 1899.
Nice.
So they're super busy, and by the time they reopen the resort, you know, we're seeing them as young women right here. But by 1899, when they reopened the resort, I always want to emphasize they're in their 40s to 60s. The cellar probably served as a dairy. We don't have any records that talk about it, but just the way it's, some of the details in there make us think dairy. Please do ignore all the dirt. This is called Middle Tennessee, and we have a lot of groundhogs. And they are a mess. And that's because we don't know. There is actually not a single written reference on this property to who the cook was. And this is very different from like Cragfont, where a lot of y'all are going after this. You're gonna hear a whole lot of detail about a woman named Delphi. And a lot of people come between these two houses and they're like, how do you know so much about Delphi? But like, you don't even know the name over here, right? Part of our job as museum workers is we have puzzle pieces of information. And at Cragfont, we have a really unique set of sources that tell us about Delphi, but we don't have the same types of records over here. And so sometimes we have gaps in the pieces of what we know. And in the case of Wynwood, we actually know more about Alfred's work in the slave trade than we do the people who lived and worked here every day. Because they just don't talk about it in the records. They don't know. Again, almost all that we know comes from the room itself. Yeah, did you guys know that croquet was an Olympic sport for one Olympics? What? I know, I was having way too much fun preparing for that talk. 1900 Paris didn't continue as an Olympic sport because there was only one paying spectator.
So we just did the tour at the Wynwood house, and now we're on our way to Cragfont. What did you think of the house tour?
Oh my goodness, I thought it was back in time. All of a sudden we had a group of militia just kind of gearing up in front of us and drumming.
Yeah, originally we were just going to go to Cragfont, but we found out that you could go to the tour at Wynwood and then head over to Cragfont because there is a combination ticket you can do. And since it's all under the same company and the same trust that they communicate with each other, they told the other tour guide at Cragfont we were going to be a little bit late.
So just want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you that are continuing to follow, subscribe, chime in the conversation, to give some feedback and let us know your thoughts on our travels. But if you are just joining us and you've never seen us before, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Not only will you get some fun content that we have in store coming to you very soon, because we have a fun-filled summer for you, where we will travel through California as well as through Japan, but you'll never know what we're up to. We are based out here in Tennessee, but we're constantly traveling around, so you never know what fun surprises are in store. And the more people we get like you to help us by subscribing and getting above 1,000 will give us the opportunity to share and showcase more stories and more travels for you. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button already.
Him and his brother George will build a fort on this land initially in 1786, named Fort Tuckahoe. But most people refer to it as Winchester's Fort even in that time. And in 1791, they sort of have the dream of this house. That's the earliest date that we attach to its construction. Could have been any time in the 1790s, but we know that it's completed in 1802. When a French traveler by the name of Francois Michaud passes through this area, he writes that Cragfont is the most magnificent estate in the area. It's the finest house in this part of North Carolina, which would become Tennessee. Now, Cragfont sort of serves as a beacon. We're situated quite well here. I told them that we're set atop a hill. There's no trees blocking our view, and you folks who just came from Wynwood might remember the Holston Road that ran right in front of Wynwood. It was the road during this time, connecting Knoxville to Nashville. Appointed underneath William Henry Harrison, so he's second in command to Harrison, future president, 9th president, I believe. And Winchester will be put over Kentucky soldiers. Now here's the problem. I told you that Winchester's an educated man, an aristocrat. He's kind of a snob, little arrogant, pompous guy. Your Kentucky men don't like that. Winchester's by the book, and Kentucky men they're fighters. They're feet on the ground kind of men. So they clash. They don't communicate well. They don't listen to one another well. And really, the Kentucky men just don't like him. He's annoying. He's too high class for them. Well, this really comes to fruition in 1813. They're in the Battle of the River Raisin, and Winchester's moving troops about. But they're in the summer, and they're in the winter rather, and they're still in their summer uniforms. In the middle of November, they're not clothed properly, their rations are running out, and things are just not looking good for this Kentucky militia. Naturally, Winchester blames William Henry Harrison. Put off the blame. It's not my fault that we're in these conditions, it's rather yours. Well, Winchester fails to heed a warning from one of his scouts in 1813, and they're attacked by the British. They're not prepared at all. And several of those Kentucky men pass away in the Battle of the River Raisin. And Winchester is to blame for this. It's his fault. He fails to heed a warning. As you can imagine, Kentucky people like him even less, if it's possible. He turns over all their wounded to the British or to the Shawnee, which are a Native American tribe in that area, and Winchester returns home, defeated. They even come out with a political cartoon in a British magazine mocking Winchester for his failure, which is on the desk that you see behind us. That secretary desk is original to the town of Cairo. When Winchester comes back to this area, he's going to work tirelessly, there's the word, to redeem himself. He doesn't want to go down in history as a failure, but actually, that's what solidifies him in history. That's why people remembered him. That's why they wrote about him, why they preserved his family letters and his antiques, because he failed. So Winchester tries to redeem himself, but he never quite crosses that threshold. Everyone still blames him for what happened at the Battle of the River Raisin, even though he really wants to put the blame off to William Henry Harrison. Well, older wood was painted with what's called linseed oil paint. It's made from flaxseed, and because it's oil-based, it conditions the wood as it colors it. So it almost becomes part of the wood. So it never peels, it never chips, but it does fade. Miss Ella Weems had all the good intentions in the world, but she didn't have paint analysis. So when she looked at the walls, what had become this faded shade here was actually once a beautiful sky blue called Prussian blue. Now there's a piece here on the mantle where that paint analysis was done, and you're welcome to filter around. You can see that it looks a little bit more seafoamy. The green has a little bit more blue in it. So this would have been bright blue. You might also notice what's on the walls here. This is not wallpaper. This is stenciling. An itinerant artist passed through here in the 1830s. He cut his stencils out of leather and hand-painted this entire room. And above us, up on the ceiling, where you see that little bit of trim, or just where it meets the ceiling rather, that there's a little seashell and bird in that design. This design is mirrored in another historic house that we manage called Hawthorne Hill, just about 5 minutes down the road. So we can trace his work through both houses. So this parlor would have been both for the family, but also to entertain guests. Winchester is a political man. He fought in the war. He's a businessman. So he entertains a lot of high society people. He's doing so in his parlor. Now, one of the daughters, who you might have heard of earlier today, Elmira Winchester, keeps a diary from 1823 to 1824. And in that diary, we learn a lot about her education, her upbringing, the family dynamic, and about this house, which rooms they used for what purpose. She recalls spending a lot of time in this room, playing backgammon or whist with her siblings. She had an older brother that's only separated by about a year. His name is Napoleon. She called him Nap. And they would often play cards together and gossip about their siblings. They write about their sister here, Louisa, as having wrath like Mount Etna, unpredictable, spurring up at any given moment. They write about one of their other brothers as being pompous, a little bit too arrogant, self-important. And Napoleon and Elmira talk about the pains of entertaining their guest. She does this throughout her diary as well. There are only 5 days in her year-long diary that she records not having a guest at this property. So they're having people here a majority of the year. She does recall one instance around Christmas time where a holy brother visited their house. Now the Winchesters are not very religious people. They do have a family Bible. They attend church on holidays like Christmas or Easter, but they're entertaining a reverend. And she says that his conversation was so dull, so mind-numbing, so boring, that she wonders, or she doesn't have to wonder, why she's such an apostate, at least on occasion, because she doesn't enjoy the company of the reverend. Now, she'll write about her guests at length, often making fun of them, referring to her siblings as literary characters, and we often joke that her diary reads like a Jane Austen novel. It's very witty, it's very funny, and she has a good sense of the culture around her. Now, she has a lot of this wit because the Winchesters loved education, remember? So she is reading newspapers, she's writing, she's interested in Greek and Roman literature. She's not accustomed to a lot of manual labor at all. She spends her days reading and writing. And that's the case for many of the Winchester kids. Some will go on to be educated in Nashville, the Nashville Female Academy. Others will pursue trade, but all of them sort of have this sensibility or this inclination to be educated.
So we are here at the beautiful Cragfont historic site, which is right here in Castalian Springs, just a short drive from Nashville, as well as the Mount Juliet area. So what are your thoughts so far?
I think this is one of the best house tours that are available to you in the area. It's very clear that the tour guides are very passionate about the history and preserving the history of these historic homes, and you get lost in the stories that they're telling you. And our tour guide Sarah here at Cragfont was absolutely amazing today, and you just want to keep hearing her talk. I don't think anyone had questions because we just wanted to keep hearing her talk.
Yeah, and it's so much history here and so well scripted. She does immerse you back into that time period to make you think that you are among the Winchesters here at their beautiful home. And one of the biggest learnings for me was how they almost let this house kind of fall apart over the years. So the state took over this historic site in the 1950s, and since then it has been operated by a variety of different nonprofit organizations. The most recent one is Historic Castalian Springs, which has been operating this site as well as the other two here in the historic Castalian Springs area since 2020. And they are doing a great job in trying to preserve the history and trying to kind of give us as much as they possibly can. But I couldn't believe that there was a chicken coop on the first floor of that building.
How could you do that? It's such a nice, beautiful building, and to ruin with chickens running around.
I know. You can still have chickens, but not in the house. But anyway, join us as we continue to show you more here at Cragfont. We have signed up for a special tour at 4 o'clock. So in the next 30 minutes, we'll be taking a tour where they'll take us through some parts of the home that are not normally accessible. And they do this in a series to kind of help promote the history here, as well as a way to fund more for the nonprofit organization and historic sites like this. So are you excited for that? We
I'm really excited.
Crawling into some spaces.
Yeah.
Such as the basement and cellar.
It's exciting.
So let's see. Stay tuned.
I thought it was pretty funny in the story she was telling about Winchester and how when he added on to the house, he was pretty nonchalant about it and like just added an addition without paying attention to the original structure. He's like, we just need extra space. I don't care what it looks like.
See all the flowers blooming?
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice change. So she was saying that in addition to Tennessean plants, there are plants all the way from the Mediterranean that are in the garden.
Oh, wow.
That you wouldn't normally find native to Tennessee.
Well, these are some beautiful crepe myrtles. I mean, look at that.
Oh my gosh, I know.
They haven't started to bloom yet, but I mean, can you imagine this with all those flowers? So we're gonna go check in at the visitor center now.
Yeah, our special tour.
If you are here during the Halloween season, make sure you check their website. because the Hans on the Font was really fun.
It's one of the best events around Halloween. Historical but spooky at the same time.
Historic Castalian Springs came about in 2020, but Cragfont is a very old historic house museum. It's been around as a museum since 1958, opened its doors in 1961. And so when these sites, they were merged together, Cragfont, Wynwood, Hawthorne Hill, under historic Castalian Springs, we found that here at Cragfont, we actually inherited a tour that had not been changed in 40 years. Cragfont is a bit more Maryland in many ways than it is Tennessee. So when you're thinking about Cragfont, it's a bit of east in the west. Now, why is this important to think about and to know? Does it even matter? Who cares if this is a Maryland house in Tennessee, right? What it tells us, though, what this house is a direct representation of, is westward expansion. Okay, who here is afraid of snakes?
Me. Oh my god. Isn't everybody afraid of snakes?
Okay, well, thank you for your honesty. I don't want to hang out with them, but I'm okay with them as long as they stay in their spot. So I will tell you that we have had a little friend in the attic. And by a little friend, he's not so little, but he is a rat snake, so he won't hurt you. He's not venomous, and he has tended to stay away from it.
She just said there's a snake.
So it could serve as another family.
Should we do it?
You know, at
Should we not?
Family bedroom. We interpret this.
That's like a little more modern.
I want to point out cord, okay, a cord. There are cords over there. That is not a snake, that is a cord, okay? And there's some cord over here, not a snake, okay? So just in case you see those, so you might still get a little panicked, but I have forewarned you, there are cords. So this attic, this roofing system that we see, so we have that, the post in the middle, and then we have the beams coming off of that post, right? And then we have these ones that are going up in this V shape, right? This is called a king truss roof. And this is not a Tennessee roof. Yes, so you'll see Roman numerals on these. This roof was put together with what's called the scribe system. So again, this house, Cragfont, is a solid stone house. So oftentimes when we talk about house construction, we're talking about frame houses.
It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice spot to peg.
A few of them have been cut and over the years, but yeah. Tennessee roofs tended to be much more like, just put it on it. There was a lot of thought put into it. They feel very temporary, but this is a roof that's meant to last.
I like the exposed stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's really kind of trendy today, right?
That's true, yeah.
Oh my God, this is so cool. We just went up here and saw all this hair, buffalo hair, hog hair.
Yeah, if you kind of shine your light sideways a little bit, it'll shadow them a little bit better. That is in spaces like this where the brick is not going to be normally seen. Bricks that weren't quite the best bricks, right? They might be a little misshapen or have some defects in them, would be used in these places. What that means is that we can often find bricks with finger marks of the people who made them. Look and look and look, and then one will pop out to you. And feel free, if you want to put your fingers on those fingerprints, you can do that.
Where was it?
It's right here. Sometimes it works better when you shine your light kind of this way. They're right here.
Wow.
Good night.
Alright, I don't see any friends, but the downstairs.
That was there too.
When we get to the smoke house, you'll see it a little bit better. So
I did get into the kitchen, like she showed me in the kitchen and then
Yeah.
up in the attic. I
Yeah.
left it there. So and I'm gonna give this to you. I've already been up, but I'd like to hear about the
yeah,
smokehouse.
sure, absolutely, yeah.
See it?
Yep.
You got a problem? Yeah, sure.
You said yeah, sure.
It'll be interesting to see how she had to live.
Well, there she is, the beautiful Cragfont historic home.
Thank you so much for joining us today as we explored both Wynwood and Cragfont. We hope you really enjoyed this video. And please make sure to give us a like and subscribe.
Thumbs up! Give us a thumbs up!
We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so please hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more adventures because
We have so much in store, and the more of you that sign up and subscribe to us and keep watching our videos and commenting and liking and subscribing, then that will allow us to have more for you. So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button. It's right here. Click it. And just remember, you haven't traveled until you've traveled with the Q's.